Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 1. Chapter 1 starts by analyzing modern strategic management. Strategic management explains the ways any person and organization create knowledge and how they rely on that knowledge to make decisions. All human beings in our daily activities handle three strategies. We all have to manage resources, as you can see here. That is our capital. With those resources, we create new products, services, we innovate, making our capital grow. And finally, we must compete. But the final goal is to satisfy the community. These three strategies have the goal of satisfying our communities. If we achieve this goal, we are satisfied. However, strategic management experts propose a different approach. I rely on McKinsey, with whom I worked many years ago, and then I continued researching what originated my second doctoral thesis and a book that I wrote, Strategic Value Management. The EVA, the economic value added, that McKinsey uses to assess the success of a firm is a financial model that helps to calculate the economic value of a company. According to the EVA, organizations need to create economic value to ensure their survival, as you can see here, and economic success. And this requires that as a result of their strategies, they need to have a return higher, so their return must be higher than the average return of similar organizations. According to the ABA, if my profitability is 10% and the average profitability of similar organizations is 10%, this minus this is equal to 0. So my EVA is 0%. I do not create economic value. If that is repeated in future years, I am condemned to disappear, as nobody will invest in me. Since, by definition, 50% of organizations have lower than average profitability, they destroy economic value and would naturally disappear even though they do things well. So you see, doing things well is not enough. It's a very hard reality. It's social Darwinism, the survival of the fittest. The graph also shows that this way of making decisions is an exercise of critical thinking. Why? Modern critical thinking requires to have a mental map like the one you see here, you see in this slide, which links the environment with the strategies and with the results. So the environment is not, I didn't graph it here, but I will show you later, with the strategies and with the results. In addition to this mental map, critical thinking requires to have a comparison, a metrics. This is the metrics, the financial results, which the EVA provides, which connects strategies and results. All this leads to two very important conclusions. Number one, how we make decisions. Modern strategic management is based on critical thinking with a metric of economic value creation, which we need to ensure our survival, which generates social Darwinism. The second is how we create knowledge. Throughout this seminar, we will do these experiential learning exercises so we can learn on our own, based on our own experience. Do you want to experience the ideas of Chapter 1 by yourself? This is an exercise of critical thinking in strategic management. You may do the complete research by yourself, but if you cannot or you don't have the time, don't worry. Just browse the main ideas and go to the conclusions at the end of the chapter. The seminar defends the need to demonstrate each idea. So let's investigate the success of Starbucks by analyzing their strategic management, and the same analysis can be applied to any organization and also to you, your life, your personal strategies. These resources can help you if you want to experiment on each part of this exercise. You can download them from my website, juanpablostegman.com, relying, the first is a financial simulation, so we are going to rely on a financial simulation that was developed by Juan Carlos Torviso, an MBA from Stanford University. I use the simulation to simulate the next years of the financial statements of Starbucks. You can download the simulation from my website. To understand how to operate this financial simulation, I posted a video in my website. To understand the connection between economic value creation and strategic management, I posted a video on my website. So I calculate in the simulation. I rely on data from the financial statements of the company, the data extracted from Yahoo Finance, and the price book and market value from Morningstar.com. The first information that the simulation provides is whether Starbucks can create economic value in the future years. The graph indicates that the market value of Starbucks will go from 120 billion, see here, 120 billion in 2020 to 220 billion, roughly, you can see here, in 2037. This seems good news, but we are not sure yet. We need to do some more, we have to continue with analysis. The market value that we have just seen in the previous slide has two components. The first is the physical capital. In other words, the money that the company must spend every year, an expenditure, a capital expenditure, expecting that it will produce good financial results in the future years. The graph says that Starbucks must spend $15 billion in physical capital during 2020, and it will continue investing in the remaining years. You see, this $15 million is roughly 1/10 of the market value of the company. It gives you an idea of how important is the market value, the physical capital. Is this good? Well, investing in physical capital is never good. It's a sacrifice that you need to make. So spending in a company makes sense only if the company can create economic value in the future. Otherwise, it's not good news. The only good news is that it's really 1/10 of the total market value of the company. That seems to be good news. We are getting into the core of this debate. To understand whether Starbucks creates economic value, we need to get into the core of this chapter, that is the EVA model, the economic value creation model that you see here in this graph. Remember that in the beginning of this chapter, we saw how both EVA and sales growth are key components of the economic value creation. So the question is Starbucks able to create economic value? The financial simulation shows that Starbucks has an extraordinary EVA, economic value added, around 20%, as you see here. You see, 20%. And it has a very good growth, 10%. So you see that the two dimensions that we discussed in the first slide are the EVA. Starbucks has 20%, and sales growth is 10%. The average EVA of the entire population of companies is 0 by definition, because remember that EVA, it compares the profitability of one company to others, to the average. So by definition, half of the companies have a positive EVA and half of the companies have a negative EVA, roughly. So having a 20% EVA for Starbucks is really extraordinary. And Starbucks is expected to have a very good growth, 10% during the next years. So both dimensions really explain very clearly that Starbucks really is very good in creating economic value. Now is the time to discuss what is exactly EVA. I will not get into all the details because it is going to be too much, but the core of the EVA equation is that the EVA is equal to the operating profit minus cost of capital. Cost of capital is the opportunity cost, the yield of alternative investments. Each year, a firm creates economic value if its EVA is a positive term. In other words, that the operating profits is more than the opportunity cost that the investors expect to have as a return for their investment in alternative investments. Each time we make a decision, we are allocating our resources in that activity and not in others, and not in other alternative activities. For example, if I decide to do the dishes, what is my cost? It is just the cost of water and detergent? No. I need to add the opportunity cost because I'm not using my time and talent to work and to make money. So my real cost of doing the dishes is the alternative cost. I mean, if you are a multimillionaire and make millions, doing the dishes can mean to sacrifice a lot of potential business. So if you want to study and progress and to do something for the community, all these costs can be very large. For example, if Bill Gates spends one day typing a letter instead of asking his assistant to do it, the opportunity cost of typing a letter can be multimillionaire, as he's allocating his time, his talent, his network of contacts, his resources to type this letter instead of doing successful businesses. We are at the core of the concept of critical thinking. You are comparing your profitability versus alternative profitabilities. It's really critical thinking. Accumulation of future EVAs is called the intellectual capital, which contributes, as you see here, which contributes to the value of the firm today. So the value of the firm is the physical capital that we saw in a couple of slides, plus the intellectual capital. The intellectual capital is the result of the unique resources of a company, based on their knowledge and relationships, which is reflected in the graph. This intellectual capital is calculated as the value of the firm above its book value, or in other terms, the net present value of future EVAs. Sorry, it's a lot of mathematics, but don't panic. We'll get into the conceptual part. In previous charts, we discussed the financial results, but now we focus on what causes such financial results, that is, the strategies. So now we are going to focus on the strategies. The 20% EVA that we saw before is reflected here, reflects the success of the competitive strategies, Starbucks competitive strategies. Strong differentiation, client satisfaction, excellent quality, variety, service quality, atmosphere, speed service, branding, locations, advertising, social media, relationships, consumer. Everything that is considered part of their strategies can be oligopolistic strategies or even also monopolistic competition. What is important for you, for your experiential learning, and this is very, very important for you to pay attention now, is that this graph reflects a critical thinking exercise. This graph is a map that connects the environment. You see here the competitive environment, that is perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. These are the environment. With the strategies, you see that each type of environment leads to some specific strategies. Some monopolistic competition to these strategies, oligopoly to these strategies, and monopoly to these strategies. And to the results, financial results. So perfect competition has a negative EVA. Monopolistic competition has an EVA close to 0. Oligopolistic competition, an EVA around 6. Monopoly is above 6. So you see that you are clear connecting here the, I don't know why this red thing, okay. So you see here that this is the core of modern critical thinking. So the connection, the creation of a map, and the map that connects the environment, the strategies, and results. This is the definition of critical thinking. For example, as I showed you before. continue with the strategies. The previous chart talked about competitive strategies connected with the EVA. This chart talks about innovation strategies connecting to sales growth. The 10% sales growth that we saw before reflects their innovation strategies. New restaurants, new channels, new products, international expansion, new partners, new alliances. This graph is again a critical thinking map connecting the environment. In this case, it's not graphed. I will graph in the next slide with the strategies and with the results. So what about the environment? Okay, this is the environment that I didn't show in the previous graph. I need like 3 dimensions if we want. This graph shows how the environment, a graph that connects the environment, the resource strategies, and the results, promoting critical thinking. This graph is incredibly enlightening because your first intuition would be that any coffee producer should be located here, very much like an agribusiness, a commodity with a negative EVA and very low growth. However, you see that Starbucks is very much here, has a 20% EVA and 10% growth. So you see that, and this is based on their strategies, on their competitive strategies that we saw 3 slides ago, and we had innovation strategies that we saw 2 slides ago. So a company based on their strategies can create economic value based on the strategy, even if it operates in an industry that does not create an economic value. So both the environment and the strategies impact, but especially the strategies on the company. Following the same logic, you can create the graphs for other functional strategies. For example, human resources strategies, as you see here. Human resources strategies that shows that Starbucks need an organization mainly as a brain in some areas. Some areas of organization has to be like a brain that have to create things, but also as networks, so they need to have alliances, and also as a organism that you need to be in contact with the customers and understand them, and also as machinery. Some part of their work is absolutely mechanistic. So you see that depending on what function you are discussing, you will have different organization strategies. But you see clearly how the core is this 20% and the sales growth. So you see how the human resources strategy automatically are connected with the strategies that we saw before. Competitive strategies, innovation strategies, EVA, etc. And the same happens with all the rest. I will not go one by one, but all the organizational strategies, the way you develop your strategic plan, operation strategies, they all follow the same rationale. So you have to place Starbucks with a 20% EVA and 10% sales growth, and automatically you define what is the best type of organizations based on processes or matrix or division, depend the type of strategic planning, the type of operations, and so on. What really matters for you is that these graphs are also maps connecting environment, strategies, and results that reflect critical thinking. And once you define the overall strategy, all the others follow the same rationale, linking strategies with with results and with environment. So you see, it's critical thinking.